The spotlight swept across the muddy yard, blinding white against the pitch black of the German night. It missed him by inches. He pressed his face into the freezing mud, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The dogs were barking now, deep, guttural sounds that echoed off the wooden barracks. He knew what happened if they caught him this time. It wouldn't be a beating. It wouldn't be solitary confinement. It would be a bullet in the back of the head. But Joseph Beyrle didn't stop moving. He crawled forward, inch by painful inch, the wire cutters trembling in his hand. If you enjoy uncovering the forgotten heroes of history, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button. It helps these stories survive. It was June 1944, the invasion of Normandy, Operation Overlord. The sky was filled with American paratroopers, the 101st Airborne raining down on Hitler's fortress Europe. Among them was Jumpin' Joe Beyrle. He was a demolition expert, a man trained to blow things up and create chaos. But the chaos found him first. He landed on a church roof, alone, miles from his unit. He fought alone for days until he was cornered in a ditch, out of ammo, surrounded by German paratroopers. That should have been the end of his war. For most men, capture is the final chapter. You wait, you starve, you pray for the end. But Beyrle wasn't most men. Inside his mind, the war wasn't over. It had just changed venues. He was now a prisoner of the Third Reich, shuffled between 7 different prison camps. He saw the brutality of the Nazi machine up close. He wrote in a letter home, words that would only surface much later. I am not a prisoner. I am a soldier currently behind enemy lines. My duty hasn't changed. Only my location has. The smell of Stalag 3 Fool was the first thing that hit you. It smelled of unwashed bodies, rotting cabbage, and despair. It was located in plain view of the drab, flat plains of Poland. The wind cut through the thin prisoner uniforms like a razor. Inside the barracks, men huddled together for warmth, their eyes hollow. They were wasting away on a diet of watery soup and sawdust bread. But Joe was watching. He was memorizing the guard rotations. He was counting the seconds between the sweep of the searchlights. "You're crazy, Joe," a fellow prisoner whispered in the dark. "They'll kill you." "They're killing us anyway," Joe replied. "Just slower." The first escape was almost too easy. A distraction in the yard, a loose board in the fence. Joe and 3 others slipped into the darkness. They ran until their lungs burned, heading west, trying to find the American lines. But they were deep in enemy territory. Too deep. They made it a few miles before a German patrol spotted them. They didn't even have time to fight. The rifle butts came down hard. When Joe woke up, he wasn't in the camp. He was in a Gestapo interrogation room in Berlin. They wanted to know about his unit. They wanted to know about the invasion. They beat him until he couldn't see out of one eye. They hung him by his arms backwards until his shoulders dislocated. He told them nothing. "You are a spy," the officer spat at him, cigarette smoke curling around his face. "We can shoot you right now." Joe looked up, blood on his teeth. "I am an American soldier. Do it." They didn't shoot him. They sent him back. They thought they had broken him. They were wrong. Back in Stalag 3C, the conditions worsened. Winter was setting in. The temperature dropped to 20 below zero. Men were dying in their bunks, freezing to death in their sleep. Joe knew he had to go again. He wouldn't wait for spring. Spring might never come. He sat on his bunk, shivering, writing on a scrap of paper. "If I stay, I die a prisoner. If I run, I die a free man. The choice is simple." He hatched a new plan. This time he wouldn't go west. The American lines were too far. He would go east. The rumors were swirling through the camp. The Red Army was coming. The Soviets were pushing the Germans back. If he could reach the Russians, he could fight. The night of the second escape was chaotic. A staged fight in the barracks drew the guards. In the confusion, Joe and 2 others went over the wire. Shots rang out instantly. 1 man went down. Then the second. Joe hit the ground, rolling into a drainage ditch. He lay there for hours, the icy water soaking his clothes, listening to the Germans hunting for him. The dogs were close again. He could hear their panting. He waited until the moon went behind the clouds. Then he ran. He ran for days. He moved only at night, sleeping in barns, eating raw potatoes he dug up from frozen fields. He was hallucinating from hunger. Every shadow looked like a soldier. Every snapping twig sounded like a gunshot. He reached a train yard. A military transport was idling, steam hissing into the cold air. He climbed into a boxcar, burying himself under crates of equipment. The train lurched forward. He was moving, but he didn't know where. When the train finally stopped, he was in Poland. He slipped out, ghosting into the forest, but his luck ran out. A German patrol stumbled right over him while he was sleeping in a haystack. This time there was no interrogation. They were going to execute him on the spot. A pistol was pressed to his forehead. He closed his eyes. "Wait," an officer commanded. They needed laborers. The execution was cancelled. He was thrown back into a camp, back behind the wire. Most men would have given up. 3 times captured, beaten, starved. But Joe Beyrle was fueled by a rage that kept him warm. He began plotting the 3rd escape immediately. "Why are you still here?" a new prisoner asked him, looking at Joe's battered face. "Because they are," Joe said, nodding toward the guard tower. January 1945. The end of the war was visible, but the killing was at its peak. Joe made his move. He didn't just sneak out. He broke out. He cleared the fence and didn't look back. He ran east, toward the sound of thunder. It wasn't a storm, it was artillery. He traveled for weeks. He was a skeleton wrapped in rags. His boots were falling apart. He wrapped his feet in burlap sacks. The cold was a physical weight, pressing him down into the snow. "Lord," he whispered to the gray sky, "just let me see one friendly face." Then he heard it, the roar of engines, diesel engines, not the high-pitched whine of German tanks. This was a deep, guttural rumble. He came out of the tree line and saw them, a column of massive tanks churning up the snow. They bore the Red Star, the Soviet Army. He didn't hide. He didn't run away. He ran toward them. He waved his arms, screaming in English, "American! American!" The lead tank turret swiveled. The machine gun leveled at his chest. A hatch popped open. A commander emerged, pointing a PPSH-41 submachine gun at him. Joe held up a pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes he'd been saving for months, the only proof he had. "Amerikansky towarzysz," he shouted. "American comrade." The commander stared at him. Then, slowly, the gun lowered. The commander was a woman, Alexandra Samusenko, a legend of the Soviet Tank Corps. She looked at this starving, crazy American standing in the snow. "Get in," she said in broken German. Joe didn't ask for a ride to the rear. He didn't ask for a blanket and a hot meal. "Give me a gun," he said. "I want to kill Nazis." And they gave him one. For the next month, Joseph Beyrle did the impossible. He became a Soviet soldier, an American paratrooper riding on the back of a T-34 tank, wearing a Russian Ushanka hat, fighting his way toward Berlin. He liberated the very camp he had escaped from. He watched the guards who had tortured him surrender. The fighting was brutal. The Soviets didn't take many prisoners. It was close quarters, street-by-street warfare. In a letter he composed in his head during those long nights on the tank, He thought, "I am fighting for 2 countries now, but the enemy is the same." His war finally ended when a German dive bomber attacked his column. The blast threw him from the tank, shredding his leg. He woke up in a Soviet field hospital. Marshal Georgy Zhukov, the most famous Soviet general of the war, came to inspect the wounded. He saw this American lying there. Zhukov didn't believe it. He asked for papers. Joe had none, but he had his story. Zhukov was so impressed he gave Joe a letter of transit that opened every door in the Soviet Union. It was his ticket home. When Joseph Beyrle finally arrived at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, the guards wouldn't let him in. They looked at his file. "Joseph Beyrle is dead," the clerk said. "He was killed in action in Normandy. His funeral mass was held months ago." Joe smiled, leaning on his crutches. "Check my fingerprints." They did. It was him, the man who came back from the dead. According to official U.S. Army records, Joseph Beyrle is the only soldier known to have served in combat with both the United States Army and the Soviet Red Army during World War II. His son, John Beyrle, later became the U.S. ambassador to Russia, completing a circle his father started in a frozen field in 1945. If you want more forgotten stories of real people who lived through the hell of WWII, subscribe. This channel exists to bring their voices back. War creates heroes, but it also creates legends. Joseph Beyrle was both. He proved that you can lock a soldier in a cage, but you can't lock up his duty. He didn't just escape a prison camp. He escaped history's attempt to forget him.